At first, she thought it was a trick of the light. The frost along the fence posts seemed to shimmer differently that morning. Not the cold gleam of ice, but something softer, almost breathing. Leora crouched, brushing a gloved hand against the ground. Beneath her touch, a thin crust of ice broke apart. And there, impossibly, a streak of green glowed faintly in the soil. A single blade of grass, trembling as if it had just remembered how to grow. She blinked hard, half afraid the vision would vanish. But the warmth in her palm remained. The air around her quivered faintly, the same pulse she'd felt in the pods, now echoing through the earth itself. The world, she realized, was listening. Every step she took seemed to wake something small. A bird's shadow flickered across the grey sky, the first she'd seen in months. Drops of water gathered on a railing, slid down metal that should have been frozen solid. Even her breath no longer hung as thick in the air. By the time she reached the edge of the old industrial district, the silence had changed. It wasn't gone, not yet, but it hummed, like a frequency aligning to her pulse. She stopped, closing her eyes. Under the stillness, she could hear it. The faint sound of water moving again. Somewhere deep below, not everything had gone to sleep. Some part of the world had been waiting for her. When she opened her eyes, a filament of light wound through the cracks in the pavement, a thread of pure white, tracing her path like the city itself had begun to stitch around her. Leora exhaled, trembling. "I'm not dreaming this," she whispered, though she couldn't be sure. The light pulsed once in answer. Then it began to spread. The light did not fade. It wove. At first, Leora thought it was retreating, sinking back into the cracks of the street like water. But as she stepped forward, it moved with her, unspooling across the ground in delicate patterns. The thread was no longer white, but shifting, opal, alive, a color she could feel more than name. She followed it through the district where machines once slept. Rusted gears jutted from the snow, and the old rail lines shimmered faintly beneath the thaw. Each step softened the frost a little more. Droplets rolled down metal beams. Vines, brittle and grey only yesterday, now glistened with green veins beneath the ice. Leora's breath came fast, half wonder, half fear. "It's responding," she whispered. "To me?" The air trembled. A low hum passed through the ground, not loud but deep, resonant, as though the earth itself had drawn a breath. Dust rose from the ruins in lazy spirals. Somewhere far off, glass cracked and fell, ringing through the stillness like a distant bell. She knelt, pressing her palm to the soil where the frost was melting fastest. Beneath her hand, something pulsed, a rhythm, slow and vast, older than memory. It wasn't hers, and yet it matched her heartbeat. The lattice, she thought, the same pattern that connected the pods, but awake here in the bones of the world. Her lamp flickered. The glow inside it, once faint and yellow, now swirled with the same living hue as the thread beneath her feet. She held it up, and the light spread further, echoing off walls, pooling in puddles that reflected not the sky above, but a sky beneath, luminous, inverted, breathing. She stood in the middle of the street, surrounded by the slow exhale of thawing life. Moss began to creep up a column. A single tree branch, long dead, twitched and shivered. Then, for the first time, she heard a sound that was not the wind, the fragile, wavering song of a bird. It came from somewhere she couldn't see. Brief but undeniable. Leora closed her eyes, overcome. "You were never gone," she said. The hum deepened in answer, rolling through the pavement like a sigh. When she opened her eyes again, the thread had vanished, but its warmth lingered, woven now into the rhythm of her breath. The world, once frozen and still, had begun to breathe with her. It began with exhaustion, not the kind born of hunger or cold. She'd known those kinds well, but something deeper, threaded into her bones. Each morning she woke heavier, her pulse slower, as if the air itself was drawing on her breath to keep the thaw alive. By the third day, the frost along the streets had retreated to the shadows. Patches of damp earth steamed faintly in the weak light. The city was changing, subtly, reverently, but every new bloom seemed to take a little more from her. Leora stopped beside the broken statue of a woman holding a torch. Its stone was cracked through the center, yet vines had begun to spiral up her arm, curling toward the flame that no longer burned. "You're growing," she said quietly. "But so am I, into something I don't understand." The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of soil. It was the first smell that wasn't frost or rust in months. She closed her eyes, breathing it in, and for a heartbeat she saw flashes, fields unburied from snow, rivers flowing backward into memory, faces she almost remembered from before the dreaming. The vision vanished, leaving her trembling. The mirror shard in her satchel pulsed faintly. When she pulled it out, its surface shimmered not with her reflection, but with something beneath it, roots, veins, filaments of light, all converging on a single point that glowed like a heartbeat. Her own. She dropped it. The shard landed without a sound, sinking slightly into the thawing soil, as though the earth had softened to receive it. Leora stared at her hands. The lines across her palms glimmered faintly, tiny veins of light tracing her skin. They faded as soon as she noticed them. But the ache they left behind was real. The world was waking through her. She tried to speak, but her voice came out as a whisper. "What happens when I stop?" The silence that answered was not empty. It was listening. A pulse rose from beneath her feet, slow and immense. The same hum she'd felt days before, now clearer, closer. She crouched, touching the earth. "Are you alive because of me?" she asked. "Or am I alive because of you?" The hum deepened, not an answer, but a mirror of the question itself. That night, she dreamed she was lying beneath the soil. Roots grew from her fingers, light wound through her hair, and the breath of the world moved in her lungs. It was peaceful, until she realized she could no longer tell if she was breathing in or out. When she woke, her lamp had gone out, but the city outside her shelter was glowing faintly, as if the dawn had remembered her name.